Hi, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my photography talks. So today I want to talk about image size and formats. So I was looking at some of the work of Sally Mann, who's known for her 8x10 work. And I was listening to a podcast recently called On Taking Pictures, and it was talking about the same thing that I was thinking about, which is her work is so magnificent. But if it were shot with a Canon 5D Mark II, would it be magnificent? And I don't think it would be. I think that the process of creating those photographs, mostly on 8x10 cameras, and now in her last several years using alternative processes, I think that's what is part of the magic that makes the photograph. It's not about how tack sharp or how many megapixels it is, and it isn't even megapixels, it's film. But the idea of what you shoot and how you shoot it. So if you wanted to shoot a family photograph of your kid, of your parents, your grandparents, and you could bring your digital Fuji or your digital Canon, or you could bring a Hasselblad with film or a 4x5 speed graphic with film. I would suspect that the 4x5 speed graphic, the image that you create with a little bit of care, because it's a 4x5 negative and you want to get it right, I would suspect that that one is going to have a little specialness. And you may be able to shoot 300 photographs of them with that Canon and that motor drive. But you might only shoot 4 frames if you bring 2 film holders and each one holds 2 negatives. But I still think that those 2 holders, those 4 photographs, are going to contain images that have a special quality. They're going to look different than your Canon. They're going to look different even than that Hasselblad. And once they're printed and framed, and even if you digitally print, I heard an argument recently that somebody says, well, if you're going to digitally print it anyway, what's the difference? Well, that would be like asking Christopher Nolan and all the filmmakers who like to shoot on film, well, if you're going to distribute it digitally, why would you shoot on film? But originating on film and finishing with a digital print is still a different quality because it was originating on film. It still holds some of the film qualities that are then translated to a digital print, but that's the printing process. And I'm a bigger fan of the hand printed process if you can use a darkroom or have access to getting your photo printed by a darkroom. But if you don't, and certainly even a digital print, but the idea that the size of the image, that seems to me so important because it takes on a different feeling. And maybe even the shooting. When you're shooting a 4x5 camera, you put a film holder in once you're focused, and unless you're using a viewfinder, you can't even really see what you're getting. So at that point, you come around the camera with your cable release, and you know it's already been set, and now you can kind of connect to the viewer and talk to them while you're getting the pose and the expression you want, and when you see it, you can hit the shutter. Kind of like I'm doing that with you right now. I'm talking to you, but I'm not behind a camera doing it. I'm talking right to a camera, but the idea is that there's no camera in front of me that is an obstacle for the two of us. I think that when people have a camera up, it's a little bit of a barrier to communication that is different than shooting a 4x5 for sure. A Hasselblad with a waist level finder, even looking down, you're no longer looking at them and connecting so well. And then with the Canon up, or a long zoom lens, which looks like a little Canon, there's certainly a way different connection that's made with how the photographer and the subject are relating. But I really think that there's a difference. And I'm going to be going out to the East Coast to visit my family, and I'm taking a 4x5 because I want to photograph my father in 4x5. I've photographed him over the years in 35mm, and Hasselblad or Rolleiflex, and black and white Polaroid. And those are really cool too, but I haven't photographed them in 4x5. And that's the project for this year, is I want to get that photograph, because that's going to be a different photograph. We're going to take a little more time. We're going to make it just right and set up exactly what I want in and out of the frame, because I'm not picking up the digital and snapping away. So I'd be curious to hear what you think. Do you think that there's a difference? Do you think if Sally Mann's work were made with a medium format or a 35mm film or digital, it would be just as good? Or do you think that that takes on that importance and that feeling because it is so big? There's another photographer named Steven Dorado who is on a Facebook group called Medium and Large Format Photography. And his work is tremendous. He goes and photographs strangers on the beach. He photographed people in the mall back in the 80s. And he has a few series out and some magazine articles. And he's one of those guys that he took an 8x10 camera and he knew how to like slowly meet people and connect with them and then get them to be in front of the camera. But even those, I would say, those don't work without having that format. Shot in 35mm or digital nowadays, they just wouldn't have the feeling. And I'll put a link to some of those. I think I can link to those and show you what I mean. But I think that there's a difference between formats. And I think that it's great to take a digital camera many times. I just run around all the time with that 20mm on the D610 Nikon. But there is a time when I do take out the Rolleiflex. And there is a time when I do take out the speed graphic, and I kind of think that those are special times. All right, I'll be interested in hear what you think. Put them in the comments below. If you're enjoying these, hit the subscribe button. If you can support, hit the Patreon, and thanks so much for watching. I'll bring you more photography talks, and here's to good light.